Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for getting me over that 500 subscriber mark. The subscribing momentum I had came to a halt. I was really close for a few days. It got over 500, then it dipped back down for a minute, then it got back over 500. Now I'm sitting comfortably at 502. Thank you so much for getting me over that 500 subscriber mark. It really means the world to me. Let's get to 750 and then 1,000. We'll just keep climbing from there. Second, I'm going on vacation for a couple of weeks. I have some videos pre-recorded. I'm going to be recording some while I'm on vacation as well. I think I mentioned it in the video itself. I'm going to be talking about some gaming memories that I really love and hold dear. So I'm going to be talking about that primarily while I'm on vacation so I can do some quick short videos and just have them ready to go. With that out of the way, let's talk about Hogwarts Legacy, the modern release I want to talk about today. And should it have been nominated for Game of the Year? Now, this is a big question. The biggest reason people were upset that it did not get nominated for Game of the Year is that it sold more than any other game in 2023, with 22 million units sold. That's an insane amount, with the total gross over $1 billion. So that's a huge accomplishment for any game to achieve, especially going against Call of Duty and the juggernauts that release every single year and make a ton of money, specifically Call of Duty. So the fact that it made so much money and sold so well, even in the midst of controversy surrounding it when it launched, it was able to achieve something that most games can only dream of. So a lot of people were kind of bugged that it didn't end up getting a Game of the Year nomination. Let's look first, though, at the Game of the Year nominees. We'll talk about them and their merits, and then we'll get back to Hogwarts Legacy. So first and foremost, we had Tears of the Kingdom, a follow-up to Breath of the Wild with some brand new innovative mechanics. They ditched a lot of the things they did in Breath of the Wild. They kept the open world map, they kept the gliding mechanics, but they added a ton of new stuff. This is a true 10 out of 10 game for sure. I adore Tears of the Kingdom. I think Breath of the Wild for me is just a little bit better, and it just for me, it falls in the camp of like a sequel being a little bit too iterative and not as innovative. Not to say that it isn't innovative. The new mechanics are fantastic, but it does feel a lot like more of Breath of the Wild, which is a great thing. But I felt the same way with God of War Ragnarok didn't end up winning Game of the Year. I just felt like it was, again, more of the original with some finer tuning things, but it just felt like, I was playing a similar game the second time. So I understand why this one didn't end up winning Game of the Year, but it definitely could have. Of course, we had Baldur's Gate 3, which is like one of the new benchmarks for game developers. Like, this is one of the best video games ever made. Definitely the best video game of this console generation. So people definitely we're expecting this one to win. It makes sense that it did. It's really cool that it did, because in like the CRPG realm, you don't get as much recognition in that regard, especially at a Game Award show. So the fact that it was able to take Game of the Year and so many other awards is pretty phenomenal, and I'm having a great time with it so far. Then you have Marvel Spider-Man 2, which again was more iterative than it was innovative. It feels more of the same. I totally understand it there. Alan Wake 2, however, was something brand new and innovative. A sequel to a game that is pretty old at this point, does things way differently, is like this great subversion of like the horror genre. Phenomenal game. And in fact, I think if it hadn't been going up against like Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom, I think this could have been a nominee for, this could have been an easy contender for Game of the Year. I think it absolutely would have won, because it won so many other awards. This was a really special game. You also have Mario Wonder, which was so much fun. I think this was the furthest reach. This one wasn't going to get Game of the Year, but it definitely was my favorite 2D Mario game since Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. This one was brand new, so innovative, so charming, and so wonderful, for sure. Then you have Resident Evil 4 as well, the remake here. This one deserves so much praise because it didn't only remake one of the most beloved video games of all time, but it did so in a way that people really still took to it, still praised it. It's really hard to do that with a game that is so iconic and so well loved, and that's already readily available on modern consoles. So the fact that Resident Evil 4 Remake did so much so right is a true testament to how well they made this game. So that's the contenders here that we're looking at. We have so many fantastic games. We got Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2. We had Mario Wonder, and then the game I just talked about that's blanking in my brain once more. It's so crazy how fast it leaves. But those games were phenomenal, and they absolutely deserve to be up there. The one I think absolutely could have been substituted out was Mario Wonder. It was a little bit shorter on the experience side. It is another 2D Mario game. I think what really elevated it for most people is the fact that it was so beautiful and charming and so accessible. There's so many new game modes and everything. But if it were for me, I would understand them substituting out Mario Wonder for Hogwarts Legacy. Let's talk about Hogwarts Legacy a little bit. This is definitely the best Wizarding World game we've gotten in a very long time. You've got like the classics on the PlayStation 1 and even into the PS2 era that were really, really good. They were competent. They were kind of old looking, but the graphics were charming and they were really fun to play. You have some other ones like the Lego Harry Potter games that are phenomenal, but this one definitely feels the most like you're actually stepping into the Wizarding World and actually doing the Hogwarts thing. And what's really cool is you get a playable character, a customizable playable character. I'm not super high on these. I don't really love doing it, but this one just felt really exciting for me to do. I really put my time into making the character. When I cut my hair, I actually cut my character's hair in the game. It just felt really fun to do the character customization because it feels like you're finally living your Hogwarts dream. And I really love that. The world that they built is gorgeous. It feels so much like the Wizarding World that's established in the movies and in the books. I think I have to applaud them for putting together like the most beautiful world that they absolutely could have. Like the flying mechanics are fantastic too if you get on your broom or if you're on like a hippogriff. There's so many mounts that you can utilize in this game. There's so much to do with like magical beasts. So you've got like the fantastic beasts and where to find them angle. That was really cool. The beast side of that, you can capture those. You have like the room of requirement that you can build. There's so much in this game and it is so well done. It's really impressive. It's amazing they were able to put together something so spectacular and capture the charm of the Wizarding World so well. Are there hiccups? Absolutely. The combat, I will say, is really good. It's really challenging. If you get into a scenario, especially with lots of enemies, it can be really intense. But for me, it's not the most exciting combat I've ever done. It's more like I like getting into the big battles. But other than that, it just feels like make sure I match my color spell to this guy, hit him with that, and then I can attack him a few times, dodge, hit him with that, use my ancient magic. Like, the combat gets a little bit repetitive, but I do like that they made it challenging to give you some kind of variety, especially, like I said, in those bigger battles. But sometimes it can feel just kind of boring. Some of the side quests can be really annoying, too. A lot of the characters, my biggest gripe is the voice acting. In the very first opening scene, I won't spoil too much about the story or anything later on, but like early on in the game, this is going to be the minor spoiler. This is the first cutscene that you have happen. Your character is flying and a big dragon comes and attacks you, ends up killing a guy in front of you. It's terrifying. And you all of a sudden can see the thestrals, you go careening down, and the emotion in the two voice actors that they have in the first scene following this is so lifeless. It is absolutely insane. You just watched a guy get murdered in front of you and you're just not freaking out about it. You get some crazy revelations that are pertinent to the other character, and he's like, oh, wow, interesting. Like, it's so dull. It improves over time. It's much better, especially with the main character. I thought he was going to be awful. I thought the playable character was going to be really bad. But over time, it gets much better with emotion, with variety. It does improve. But some of the side characters are some of the most annoying NPCs I have ever experienced in a video game ever. It made me not want to do a bunch of the side quests. And I wanted to do the side quests because the world is so engaging, so it's fun to explore and do lots of extra stuff. But some of those NPCs suck, and some of them are really good. So the voice acting and the NPCs are really hit and miss. They're either good, they're great, or they're horrible. So it's a lot of good, fortunately. Not too many horrible, so it balances out, I think, overall. It's definitely also it's symptomatic of like a giant open world, a Ubisoft world-esque thing. It's not as bad as those, let me make that clear, but it is a big open world with a ton of little things to do. Most things don't feel fetch questy, but sometimes it can get that way. But most of the time, the side quests are actually pretty interesting and fun to do. So there is that going for it. But it's not the most polished open world ever. If this wasn't a Harry Potter game, you would say like the mechanics were pretty clunky and this would be just a good open world video game. as a whole, but obviously you can't separate just the gameplay from the beautiful world that they've built. It doesn't really make sense to do that. But for gameplay wise, it feels a little glitchy at times. You can't always scale things that you feel like you should. Falling off stuff can be kind of crazy. Like it's just not the most polished in every single way. And I totally understand. This is a giant world that they built. The map is pretty spectacular to explore. So polishing out all the little fine details makes sense. They're not going to be able to do all that. I'm sure they were on time crunch, and they put together a package that is really fantastic. So I want to get to my ultimate ranking here. The storyline is really fun. I think it's fairly serviceable. I think it does a great job. I think it moves the story along in a good way. It's not the most entertaining story, but because you're in the Wizarding World, it ends up being more engaging and more engrossing. So I really did like the story overall. I think the gameplay is pretty fun. The combat can be really awesome, can be really excellent, or it can be a little bit samey at times, but for the most part, it's pretty good. The sneaking mechanics can be pretty fun too. The side quests are great because the world is so enjoyable. The fact that you're playing through as a Hogwarts character is really something special, and I have to commend them for that. But should it have been nominated for a Game of the Year? I would say probably not. If you look at the other games, you have some of the hardest hitters in the industry. A new Mario game, a new 2D Mario game that is as innovative as Wonder, makes a lot of sense to be nominated. If I'm going to swap any of them, it would be this one for sure. But everything else, I think, absolutely belongs there. Alan Wake 2, 100% deserves. Baldur's Gate 3, obviously. Tears of the Kingdom, obviously. Spider-Man 2, yeah, probably. This is, while it is a more iterative, this is a more polished game with way more to do, some really great villains they establish. You have a lot of these games that are just really phenomenal. A remake of one of the best games of all time that's just absolutely fun, Resident Evil 4. So I think it maybe could have been nominated for Game of the Year, but I understand that because of the polish and the hard work that went into these other games, the 6 that did end up getting nominated, Hogwarts got left out a little bit. I think it maybe should have won some other awards. I think it could have won some other awards for sure, but I think they'll settle for having it be the best-selling game of the year, making over $1 billion for them. I think as a first run on a game like this, with this much scale, this is a huge, big thing for Harry Potter fans. This is a huge good sign here because it shows that they are competent enough to make this beautiful game, and if they can improve on that for a potential sequel or something else in the Wizarding World, we're in for a real treat. I think we have a great baseline here, and I'm excited to see what they do in the future. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about Hogwarts Legacy. I'm going to end up giving it, because of some of the roughness, because it's not the most polished experience ever, I'm going to end up giving this one a gold rank. I did enjoy it. I think it's worth your time, especially if you're a Harry Potter fan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.